Okay. Okay, we're waiting on Sandra and our Region 1 reps, but we do have a quorum.
Hi, this is Sandra from Region 5.
Hi, Sandra, thank you.
All right, Irene, we're ready.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So let's get started with roll call.
Oh, yeah, we've confirmed quorum. We're just waiting on Region 1, Clarissa Simon and Lynn Perez. They are on their way, and all the other representatives
Are here. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. All right. So then let's go to the agenda. So the agenda review today, we're going to be, looks like a pretty hefty agenda. We're going to be looking at updates on a high-level roadmap, SCR proof of concept. We'll also go and give some committee process on the redesign, the WE-TIP replacement. We'll also look at some performance trends. We'll also get an update on benefits Cal. And then our release and policy updates. We'll also get an update on the transition to Deloitte, and then an ICT update. And we'll also hear from our Fresno partners on the Gen AI, and then the procurement update. And then also hear some updates from our state partners. And then we'll go in to see if any regional priorities from our PSC members. And then we'll also hear about the conference this year. So for the PSC members, is there any questions or comments regarding any of the agenda items or other topics that you want to, that are not included? Okay. Don't see anything. So for our public attendees, is there any, this is an opportunity, is there any comments or questions regarding any item that is not listed on the agenda? Okay. So the next item will be the approval of the minutes from and a review of the action items from our November meeting from last year.
Yeah, there's no action items, Irene, but we can see if anyone wants to motion to approve the November 21st, 2024 minutes.
Hi, good morning. This is Cindy, and I'll motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. And we need a second.
Second.
Who was that? A second?
On Mill Region, LA County PSC.
Sean.
Sean. Oh, okay, sorry. All right, Eduardo.
Approved for.
All right, Rachel,
I approve.
Cecilia.
I approve.
All right, Janae. Okay, you're on mute.
I'm not on mute on my end. I approve.
You approve? Okay. Okay, Alberto,
Approved.
Sandra,
I approve.
Irene,
I approve.
Olga.
I approve.
All right. All right,
All right, thank you so much.
okay,
Oh, public comment.
yeah, public comment, Irene.
Okay, do we have any comments from the public that are on this call?
All right, so we're going to move on to the informational items. We shared this information at the member representative meeting last month. You know, preceding this, we talked about some of the objectives that the counties would like to see, but we're gonna have Sandeep Haji, our CTO, talk about how we're going to go about developing our high-level roadmap. So that'll turn it over.
Yeah, I'm Sandeep, been here over 3 months. Primarily focused on building out a technology roadmap, 18 months out. Within that, how do we innovate to get there? Is gonna be my primary focus. The other aspects within that technology roadmap is more specifically data and analytics, and how do we sort of build a system which is, you know, much more useful and usable for all the counties. Thanks. Yeah, so part of what is the process of building this roadmap? How are we gonna go about it, right? So the first, on the left-hand side, what you see is how we would get, you know, the process which I'm doing with the help of a lot of folks in CalSOS, understanding the various systems which CalSOS builds, maintains, enhances. Looking at them from a technical aspect, looking at their architectures, looking at, you know, if there are any gaps in the architecture and resiliency, looking at their metrics, looking at their cost or the pace or velocity of change we can make in these systems. So analyzing all that right now. A lot of them have grown over years and built and served a certain purpose, but are these extensible and are these forward-looking? That's what I'm sort of first looking at. While I'm doing that, in parallel, gather feedback on the usage of these systems. What are the various stakeholders who are using these systems? What are their main needs, wants? What are their goals? Try to understand that rather than just the requests. But also look at the requests through SCRs and others which have, you know, I think been processed and categorized. With that, and that will sort of, you know, that effort will take some time, and then we would gather, analyze that feedback, sort of look at where, you know, large percentage of pain is, what are major needs. From that, we will align with the larger group and have it prioritized and look at the opportunity list we have to make change, to innovate. Right? We're not going to innovate for innovation's sake, but towards the needs which we talked about on the left-hand side. While we have gathered that, we're looking at the objectives that Julia and the JPA a few weeks back voted on, and these are the objectives that we've sort of down selected. So this is what we want to work on, and now use that lens to figure out which opportunities we want to double click on and do some innovation on, or get a better understanding of what the solution space is. So right now we're still in the problem space on the left, and then now we start doing some POCs, for proof of concepts, some spikes, some understanding, looking at various tools possibly available, technologies available, processes available. And then out of that comes out a roadmap, which is more of a narrative or a sequence of things we want to do in each of these systems. We will also consider at that point what is already being committed on the roadmap, which is, or maybe policy commitments. Those are also taken into account. And then looking at all that, synthesizing that, and coming out with what is the release plan from there? When can we release these things? What would be the capacity? What would be the budgets? That would be the next step on the road. So hope this gives you a high-level view of how we would build roadmaps. And you know, over time, once that's done, then, you know, the process, there's a feedback that we start looking at these again. Once we release stuff, how we are doing towards building the future roadmaps, right? So that has input towards what we do.
right, Irene, back to you.
Thank you. Any questions
Oh,
for?
Yeah,
Oh,
So-
if you thought you were done. You look over like,
Oh,
okay.
it's up to
Just
you.
kidding, Irene, never
Yeah.
mind.
So this is what, and this is just a template of showing how the roadmap would look like. The idea is to give more of an update in June. But there would be sort of these roles, these various teams or systems, if you may, which CalSOS focuses on. To build a better, my goal is to build a better understanding of what's now, what's already been committed, and then really fill out what's next and later. And each of these initiatives there will have a clear sort of purpose, right? Why are we doing it? Why are we doing it now? If we are successful, then what does that success look like? Few sort of high-level key questions there to align folks on what we will be delivering for each of these initiatives. From there, working with Holly and the PMO process, budget process, again, also looking at the previous commits I talked about, and then working with various delivery teams on what the release plan looks like. So just to sort of draw a distinction between a roadmap and a release plan is sort of the point of this slide. Yeah, so, next steps continue on assessing systems and gaps, gather the feedback as you saw on a couple of slides ago, align more on as we are, what we had from the objectives from the JPA, and what the goals and the objectives and the key results should be there. And then you'll hear from me more in middle of June.
All right, now really back to you, Irene.
okay, any questions?
I have a question. This is Cindy.
Cindy?
Good morning. Hi. I'm just earlier on the slides and you were talking about gathering feedback from the counties and user feedback. And I was just wondering how that might be accomplished, or do you already have a plan, or is it, I know this was high level. And so
Yeah.
just curious as to, since it's very technology based, it sounds like, just wondering what type of feedback would you be looking for, and how would you gather that feedback?
It would be more user based and more observing how people are using the system more than specific technology. But what we would start with, there is a lot of richness of information within CalSOS itself with a lot of vendors and others, and right now soaking that in. And then I think working with Julia with specific county visits to go observe how people use contact center, how do they use CalSOS, or how do they use various things. And that gives a lot of insight to me while listening to, your prioritized list coming from them as well, right? So both sort of looking at what sort of has been articulated so far as pain points, but also observing how people are using it, and that sort of feeds innovation in a lot of it.
And Cindy, we have a ton of feedback already, from past site visits, the SCRs, right? That will help us kind of refine where those, to be more intentional about where we focus any additional double clicks, in terms of meeting with the counties. But we have a lot of feedback, already. So we're gonna start there.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. This is Sandra. As you're building the roadmap, do you anticipate any potential delays in any of the current releases that are already scheduled?
Really not.
Answer is
No, the idea is this is more further out, and that should not impact current releases. And even if you saw in the process, we are staying cognizant of the current releases when we come up with the release plan.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Shaw from Region 6. I had a question. I know you said there's already a lot of feedback from the various counties, and as part of your first step of assessing and identifying gaps, are you looking at all programs that use CalSOS and access CalSOS, or are you focusing on like the major programs?
no, all programs.
Any other questions?
Go on.
Hi, this is Rachel from Region 3. And I appreciate that there's the opportunity to review feedback that's already been received and to look at how the system is being used. But just wanting to keep in mind that people use the system based on the limitations of the system. So hoping that there's future opportunity for feedback on how people would like to use the system. So
Yeah, Rachel, I think that's fair. I think the SCR, the reason, and I agree, I think the SCRs also start articulating that. Those are kind of, sometimes the Christmas list, so to speak, of like, it would be really great, and it's a good starting point. We have 2,000 of those, right? So I think that's, at least giving us a little bit of research on those pain points, but I agree. We definitely need to make sure we get those like nice want to haves and those wants articulated as well.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next item.
The public,
Does the public have any questions on this topic, the high level roadmap? If see no questions, then we'll move on to the next item.
all right, so, just kind of related to what we were just talking about, we have a significant backlog of SCRs that we have received over the last few years. So, there's been an ask on how we're going to navigate those and manage those. So we did do a proof of concept. This is scrubbed to, with any of the identifiable information, but just to kind of give you an idea of what the POC looks like. We really want to evaluate that backlog, but we want to use, some AI to actually analyze those, group those, and categorize those. So we now have categories, subcategories of the SCR so that we can be more intentional about how we tackle those moving forward. So we can, potentially we have groupings, for example, of certain topics, and, in one release, we could, knock out, a significant portion, if not all of those in a particular category. It'll allow us to do that because we have this lens now. So we're going to be doing that, and we want to share that because that's been an ask on, what's the status on that. But it also helps us identify the trends that we're seeing in terms of increases in, any particular area of CalSAWs that we need to focus on, what's keeping the counties and the, public up at night in terms of functionality. So we're going to be using that. We're going to be meeting and engaging with the county so that we can also use this information to clean up that backlog, because there's some that were written, and whether it was through policy changes or other enhancements, they're no longer relevant now, right? So we can clean those up and get those out of the, out of the backlog. And so we'll be having our regional managers engaging with the counties so that they can assess the ones that they submitted and see if there's any, we need to grow this backlog a little bit. So we just wanted to share this because this has come up with, several times. What are you all going to do with the SCR? So we're, hopefully going to be able to engage with you and use this to give us more velocity and making progress on the SCR backlog. So that's a really quick high level. And then Irene, we can open up for questions.
Any questions from the PSC members?
Yeah, I have one, Sean, Region 6. I know that there's a lot of times an SCR submitted into or is categorized in one committee, but it impacts others as well. It's not just necessarily just subject to one. Is there any thought about, cross-identifying or maybe kind of making sure that there's collaboration when we're looking into the backlog of assessing some of these priorities in one and how it can also impact the rest, and seeing if we're kind of weighing that value there?
Could you give me an example, Sean? I guess I'm trying to.
So I know that there may be maybe a change that is happening to, I guess the first thing that comes out to mind would be something that's specific to ABOD, let's just say. I know that's on a waiver now, but I think in a lot of stuff that people are preparing for when those waivers gets lifted, and we know that that's really very much a CalFresh, impact to eligibility, but there are also some of the programs that implement an employment and training where some of that information impacts it. So it might be presented, a system change might be presented in a local committee where it's a county specific program, but it's also something that's more on the CalFresh employment and training that might be affecting a larger group, such as the larger CalFresh population. So I'm wondering how we're looking at where it's best, where it should be best presented and how it kind of interacts with more than one program.
Yeah, I think, well, I think I understand what you're saying now. I think regardless of where it's presented, we're always, CalSAWS is one system, right? So we have to factor in things and take a holistic approach. So the point of this dashboard is also to raise up the visibility of, these SCRs so that when we have conversations, we're having a more global conversation about it, so that when we actually get into the design conversation, we're thinking about all those those impacts and interdependencies. So I guess the short answer is yes. This isn't committee specific. This is CalSAWS wide.
If I could jump in for just a second.
Yes,
We had a Karen Rapinati, policy design director. We just recently had this, as a matter of fact, where one committee wanted to make a particular field, for instance, mandatory, and it did cross over as demographics and that sort of thing do. And what we do is on those, when they cross over, is we do keep the other committees informed. And so when it went to other committees, they raised that issue of like, it is not mandatory for our programs. And so we had to, go back and take a look at that and work with the originating committee to make it not a mandatory field because it applied across the board. So we do take that to other committees and keep everybody informed and get the feedback as well there.
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
What's the process? I guess, is it gonna take a different process to get all together for these SCRs? Because you're looking at them and categorizing them. What's the loop back process to the counties who opened the tickets? And whether or not that resolution worked.
Yeah, I think, well, the first part that I alluded to here is we need to go back to the counties and ask for your help on cleaning this up, right? Because I think some of them are really high level, really nondescript. And so some of that grooming that needs to happen, we need to do that, right? So I think that's kind of step one. I think as we move through the actual backlog itself, as we actually start getting into, okay, this is something that we're gonna put into a future release, and now we're getting into that granular design conversation, then there's a more holistic conversation, and this will feed perfectly into what Karen is about to talk about in terms of, the working groups that will be assembled to actually work around a very specific category, right? All right. Irene, I don't know if there's any more questions from PSC members.
I had a comment. This is Cindy from Region 4. And just, I agree with, the questions from Sean as well. But, so I think the concept is a good idea because I do think that sometimes our committees get sort of boxed into, okay, let's pick our top 10 priorities. And then they pick those priorities and then they may not match, with the strategic priorities that have been established, or they may not ever get even to the top priority. And so then in some ways it's a frustration also for the committee members because they're kind of spinning their wheels, on picking these priorities and trying to agree on priorities. So I think wherever we can leverage the other activities and the other committees and try to better group You know, however, you know, you come up with the plan to do it, I know might be a challenge, but I think that in concept, it's a really good idea to just try to get those things that are most important and try to get those done rather than spending a lot of time just prioritizing, you know, certain items that may not be what the group at large needs. So anyway, I appreciate this concept and hope that it moves forward in the future. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think you're bringing up a really good point, and I'll say this because I think it feeds into what Karen is about to share. Our committee redesign is intended to put the right decision making in the right place, right? And so really, when you say the committees are prioritizing, the committees aren't prioritizing, right? We have a governing board who really determines what the priorities are. And then it traces down to the committees deciding on design decisions, right, from a user perspective. And so we have to kind of clean up some of this, because I agree, Cindy, it gets frustrating for them because they're like, well, I thought we were, you know, doing this. So we're going to clean that up, and that's really on us to provide more clarity in terms of like why you are sitting in this room or at this table is to give us feedback or to decide on this. And so you know, we want to work through that. So by the time it gets to our working groups, you know, that the committees will evolve and become, you know, working groups, that they know what they're there for. And it's really about, you know, optimizing the design of whatever the JPA and the PSC determine are the things we should be working on.
And if something can be thrown in, I know they kind of refer to it sometimes as the low hanging fruit, but you know, something can be thrown in and it's like, this is a good opportunity to just take care of this one small thing along with the package, then I think that's great to look at, you know, the bigger picture. So appreciate that.
I agree. No, I agree 100%.
So I had a comment too, or a question. So, you know, we're doing this immediately to look at the backlog that we currently have. And it's saying it's going to group future releases. So is this a structure that we'll have in place moving forward? Pretty much somewhat like categorizing them in these trends and themes?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. I guess that's the short answer. Karen is, I don't want to.
That's the right answer.
Thunder. Yeah. I don't want to kill. I don't.
Y'all got my whole topic.
I know. I was going to say, I'm trying to be really, really high level. So Karen can share this redesign process because it's intentional. We kind of, you know, even structured this agenda to kind of, you know, kind of get to this, you know, what Karen is going to talk about. So short answer is yes, Irene.
Hi,
Okay, I'm getting ahead, right, Karen?
Yeah. Great
Hi.
segues. Sorry.
Hi, this is Olga from LA County, and maybe Karen, you're gonna cover this next because when I'm looking at this, how often are the regional CER group going to meet to go over this and clean it up? I'm new here, so I'm trying to see, is it years CERs in the backlog? So are we meeting monthly to clean it up, or what's that structure look like?
I will go through some of that in my presentation. Thanks, Olga. And if I don't answer it, feel free to ask.
All right, so we don't jump the gun. Any other questions from PSC that won't eat up into Karen's topic? If not, does the public have any questions or comments on this agenda item? No? All right, Karen, it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you for all the segues, everybody. I appreciate that so much. Clearly, most everybody recognizes what a lot of the issues are that we're dealing with. And so, you know, we're dealing with a structure that is a committee structure that's, you know, it's old. It's we established it back in the C4 days with the 4 counties to get everybody working together. And then over that time, it's just grown and it's grown and it's grown. And it's to a point that, you know, we have a lot of committees. They meet. The groups are on the next slide. The groups are large. And we need to to figure out a better way that can, not take so much time of folks in the counties having to sit through the long meetings, and the time that's needed for participation is quite a commitment from counties. And so we are looking to make some changes in this area. So on to the next slide. So we're working on a couple of things. So globally, what we're trying to do is make sure that the processes for the consortium and are complementary to those for the vendors that we work with, so that collectively together we're able to bring initiatives through and get those implemented, and that they are the top priorities that counties are looking for. So we have two areas that we're working on. The first one is the CER. So the CER is, I have an idea I'd like to put forward. And it's kind of an arduous process today. And so we're looking to clean that up and to establish more information about what the business need is to help in that decision-making process. Because as we move priorities to the more regional level and that sort of thing, counties need to be able to talk to each other and understand, what the CER is about as they move forward. And then, as CERs come forward, the regions help with the prioritization rather than at a committee level, because committee level is, again, it's a lot of people, it's a lot of priorities, it's a lot of everything, and work on those items for the counties and regions to kind of figure out which ones they want to put forward. And then that helps with our backlog, because we're looking to get those road mapped when they come in. And then from a committee perspective, we're looking to reduce the time and effort that the RCMs or the SMEs have to do just from the committee process perspective. We still want to maintain the use of the small groups. It's been very effective over the last 3 or 4 years, things like virtual assistant, task management, WIDTIP, there's a bunch of them. And those having smaller groups, regional smaller groups, have really helped put forward designs that have implemented well and been well received by the counties. So as we look to, the next slide. Thank you. So as we look to the CER process evolution, we are looking to have the counties put together the initiative so that it is representative of what is the highest priority collectively, and that things that we put into the system, then we make sure we're meeting the business needs. They're discussed, at an internal level, kind of run through a process that's county run by your RMs, and get that to themes, groupings, however you want to identify that. A couple people earlier had mentioned about, being able to grab some of that low-hanging fruit. So looking at things more from a like a collective group of things rather than just one particular item in one particular area. And can we bang out, a topic at a time? And then we also need to work with as part of this process is we'll be working with counties and regions on what does that look like to try and balance what's the highest value along with our anticipated capacity, right? Because while we want to do the things to group themes, what Julia talked about with regard to the SCR POC, all of that, we all have to keep in mind that at this point, there's not extra money to go with those. So we just want to make sure that we are putting in what PSC for our group or the JPA strategic items, that those things are being addressed, and that we can work those within our anticipated capacity. So it's a balancing act, as it always has been, to try and figure out what those things are. But to somebody's earlier point on the frustration of I've prioritized in my committee these things and they're not getting in, we end up with roughly at 5 5 priorities per committee. That's over 150 enhancements that people are looking to get into the system. And it is essentially untenable. It's so significantly large that it is a significant frustration, not only for the counties, but for the project as well, to try and figure out of that 150, like which are the most high priorities. So by having the counties more influence that, we're hoping that will help us as we move ahead. Next slide, please. So current activities that we're working on is we had an internal focus group and included some RMs to look at what should the CER be? What should that look like? What should it contain? And we have a straw man that we're looking to put forward to a bit of a larger group, and it's more based on business need and what, describing it and, potentially looking at putting more of the, the business need, what needs to get done. And it helps other counties understand, because today occasionally we'll get a CER that's very short, doesn't have any detail in it to it really. And then we have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, like, what is it that you really mean? So we're trying to get that more upfront, so it's more clear when things come in, what needs to be done. And, and work on the other part of this work group has also been working on how do we finalize that process, and then what communication will be needed in order to get it out to everybody. So you guys are part of that as we're working through this, is making sure that we're giving updates at both JP and PSC. Additionally, we're looking at committee evolution strike team. So it's looking at, again, a smaller group to look at what is what's a proposed model, putting that together, developing the additional, communications that need to go with that, and then sharing the proposed redesign process, likely at either this or the JPA meeting, for approval, to be able to move that forward and get started. And as we're going through transition, be able to help make those changes along the way. So our next steps for this process are to look for folks to participate in that. This may be RMs, something like that. Strike team kickoff, started get it going, and provide regular updates. We had a good visit with Region 5 the other day. They gave us some feedback. We're taking that feedback in and working this through the process. But this is a process that's long been needed to change. We're super excited about being able to move forward, use our hours to the very best of our ability, as we have been doing, but do it hopefully better, and and align everything with our vendor changes that are coming in, and make sure that we're all headed in the same direction together. And that, I think, is that's my last slide. I'll turn it back to you, Irene.
All right. Any questions from the PSC members?
So have we determined how much time this is going to add to the process?
It should reduce.
formalizing?
It actually should reduce the process. The slowest part of our process right now is the time it takes for sending everything out to committees to get approvals. And the approval process with the priorities will take place at a higher level. And so what we'll be able to do then is work on what the design is. And if we need to work with a small group on the design, there are actually a lot of things that we do that don't require big significant designs. And there's a lot of routine things that we do. And so part of this process is identifying what those things are, so that the things that, really need the input, we're making sure that we ask for the input on, and not making every process be the same for everything, because it's not a good use of everybody's time to follow in exactly the same process every single time. So we'll figure out, and we already do this today as an example. We already do this today on things like COLAs, where we don't send those out for approval. They're a policy. They have to get in, they're time boxed. And so we communicate on them, but it's not an approval process. So, and there's, there's quite a few of those sorts of things that are pretty routine. Another one would be like, potentially like state correspondence, which we still run through committee, even though the state provides it and we have to put it in. So trying to just get better at some of the processes and figure out how can we lessen the impact for counties on the time that's needed for these various efforts.
And then Sean, another example is what Karen referred to when we get these very vague requests. And then we have to keep the looping, right? Like all that time that's spent on just getting clarity. We're gonna do that at the front end, right upstream, so that by the time it gets into the project, that it's clearly articulated, what the ask is, but also how does it align with the objectives that the JPA said we should, so we need to get more clarity up front. So this is to add more velocity. This doesn't add time.
Okay. So and I know I see one of your first next steps is requesting regional representatives. Are we still going with the same structure of how we have our regions now, and then just getting more specific? Where they still be the same structure of even within that region of I'm just kind of using this example, Region 6, we still going to have our certain committees like is it going to be just a mini version of what we have as a whole?
No, we're looking to change the overall structure.
Over everything.
We want to make sure that the communication is still there. We want to still make sure that, people still have the ability to have input and those sorts of things, but we have some ideas on how we can work with counties to make it better.
And is the
regional structure, so to be fair, the regional structure all stays there. This is only about committees. So we're not blowing up like the regional structure to where in your example, LA is competing with other regions for representation. There's still Region 6 representation in various efforts.
Okay, and there's still going to be thoughts about how within each region and each committee that we're voting in this new.
There is not voting in this new role.
There isn't.
No, there is not. So the feedback is, design feedback, those sorts of things. People can raise issues that need to be resolved because that is part of a design process. But I will tell you that the voting, we often, for transparency, we often start builds while the voting is still going on, because the voting takes a significantly long time and we need to get designs to build. If they're controversial, then that's a different story. But if they went through and everything is fine and we're just got it out for approval, then we will move it to build so that we can stay on time and get things in as quickly as possible. So what we're trying to do in this effort is to match where we want to go with post-transition, to new vendor. That we asked for things, and maybe Julie could address this better than I, but we asked for improvements in our processes as part of the new contract. And so the consortium then, including the counties and everybody, has to step up to that and be able to, align with our vendors so that our work is complementary and that we're all moving forward as quickly and as accurately as we can.
Yeah, and there's no voting because the design of this now is the JPA is voting, the PSC is voting, right? By the time it gets to those working groups, they're just giving input on design decisions, right? So they're going to trust their leadership on what they said, the requirements, and then from there, they're going to give us input on the design.
And we do have quite a history of this. We've been doing it now since COVID, and it's been quite a successful process. We just need to get all the other processes aligned so that we're all headed with everything headed in the right direction.
So Karen, for these reps, do we know what level we're going to ask the counties to look?
To participate in this, likely RMs or that level.
I want to ask, what's the time commitment for this?
Time commitment for what?
Like how often,
sorry.
when they have the meetings, is it part of a monthly meeting, a quarter meeting? When you guys are all,
For working on the changing the structure of the committee? It's a short, it'll
yes,
be a short term, mostly internal group, but working with the RMs on putting these things in place. We're already starting on some of it, as Julia mentioned, with the SCR reviews to help, kind of figure out what the actual backlog is. And this is all about enhancements. This is the SCRs are about enhancements. We're still doing policy and all those sorts of things, but we want to be able to finish this up hopefully before transition completes, which is the end of this year, beginning of next year. So we'd like to have it in place. And I'm sure there's an update here, but Deloitte will start taking over changes and towards the end of this year. And we want to make sure that we have things in place to be able to support that as the design for the design, which means sooner than later. But we do need to make sure we communicate it out, because there's a lot of people in these committees, and when things change, we still want to do the communication and those sorts of things. We will have a plan that gets out to everybody to, socialize this as we move forward. But our overall goal is to move to a sustainable 58 county solution. So, and that has just grown over time. And so we're kind of taking a step back. What should it really look like? What makes the most sense to still be able to move forward, still be able to have feedback, those sorts of things.
thank you.
So Karen, a couple of questions. So if the RMs will be part of this regional review group, then
I'm talking about this committee structure strike team.
okay, the strike team. All right.
Yep.
Who do we envision overseeing this review process?
The RMs are overseeing that, but I'm not overseeing that process. That's the RMs. We're going to give them the SCRs to be able to take back to the counties and work through, and they may have different ways that they want to do that, working with you guys. And then they'll come back to let us know which SCRs could potentially be closed, which ones need to get discussed with other people before closing, other regions, whatever, and work through that. We met with them yesterday and had a good conversation about this. I think they're excited about helping with this process. And so we're trying to take this backlog of enhancements, look at right size them, group them, as Julia mentioned, eliminate any duplicates, those sorts of things, so that we know what that looks like. And then moving forward, we haven't finalized that process yet. This is totally a work in progress, and we will come back to you guys with future updates.
So I know you had mentioned that there will be no voting because it's pretty much up to JPA, PSC, what we're putting forward. So then if this review process, if these specific regions, they can't agree, is there going to be someone who will have the final say, or it will just be
Sure.
based? Oh, there will.
Sure, we still have our escalation approach that's been in
Okay.
place, and probably will, it still is accurate at this point. And so, so we have an escalation path that is in our handbook that everybody has access to, I think. All the counties have access to. And basically we try and resolve things at the lowest level. Is there something that we can work with? And we bring the arms into it, and see if we can work things out, and then it goes from there. Eventually, like, this body is part of that escalation process. However, we've been very successful over the years of being able to resolve things before it gets to this level, but PSC is one of the steps in our escalation process.
So Karen, if a roadmap area is identified and is prioritized by the consortium, like this is what we're trying to achieve, are we then saying that only SCRs that are in the area are they going to be processed? Like those are the only ones that are going to get approved to move forward?
We will put forward a plan. The plan's not all done yet. We're just at the beginning steps of some of this, so some of it's still theory at this point, but we do have thoughts on how we've been doing things that have been successful, working with with improving the throughput. We've done more things in that hybrid agile kind of approach, and we want to continue to use that and move even more towards agile so that we can get things out, more quickly. But I guess I just want to clarify, these are like two different efforts. So what Julia talked about with the SCRs and reviewing those and grouping them and all those sorts of things is one effort all by itself. It's just trying to clean up our backlog, make sure it's as accurate as possible at this point. And then the committee restructure is, I guess it's three things. So that's one. The second one is committee restructure. And then the third one is the CER process and giving that more opportunity for counties to figure out the top priorities that will come through the decision-making bodies.
So from here, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So from here, at the regional level, whoever's, the RM's helping and organize what is a priority of that region, will then go and make that decision of what we're going to be kind of moving then to the committees as priorities for that region.
So from a CER process, we're looking at bubbling it up through the counties so that by the time it gets to you guys or JPA, whoever is giving the objectives for us, that we are looking to get those items on a roadmap, and that what we would call the backlog remains with the counties to be able to put forward things at the next time that we're looking to do additional road mapping. It'll be an ongoing, that'll be an ongoing process. Like, I don't know if it's yearly or what that look like.
So we could still technically have a backlog if it's not on the specific roadmap that is being.
We are not looking to, on our side, create a backlog, but yes, they would remain there. Like, they don't disappear. They would, so people could at the next time or whatever be able to say, oh, now it's time for this. And, it's potentially like, if when you listen to Sandeep, it might be that there's some things that kind of go together too, right? Because he is working on a roadmap as well. It might be that a new technology helps us do things better from a county perspective or from a system perspective, and that our overall goal is to keep moving forward, make a system that works for the 58 counties, and that our technology also increases over time so that we're all headed in the same direction to make the system as good as it can be. And some of that is moving forward and doing things more efficiently, accurately, but more efficiently, so we make the very best use of the hours that we have.
Irene, Albert has his hand up too.
Albert?
Good morning, and thank you for the presentation. Just looking forward for the recommendation from the project and the work group. I agree, the structure needs to change. I think that having too many people, especially wanting to participate, and I agree, everybody's coming from a right place, but too many voices sometimes delays the process. So again, just looking forward for the recommendation and looking for our JPA and or our PSC members to kind of put close attention and set those priorities so that one, we can support the project and their efforts, but also so that we can communicate that to our counties, that these are the set rules, and that message needs to come from the counties and not the project. I think that the PSC or JPA, whoever the governing body has the authority to approve the change, they need to make that change. Yet the communication, the new process or structure needs to come from the counties from the county to the counties, and not be the responsibility of the project to kind of set that new foundation. Thank you.
And then I see that, I think, Sean, this process, once we're going to keep you all informed. Okay. Right. So I think as we work through this, there will be visuals and kind of this is how we're moving forward, just so there's clarity and alignment. And just to double click on what Albert said, you all can articulate it back to your counties with clarity. You'll have some actual, things to share. So I think that will be forthcoming.
I have a question.
Yes.
Karen, you said there were 3 things that was discussed and maybe
I was
we
just,
haven't
I was
all lumped
separating,
together.
I was separating out the POC because I think I felt like we're getting a little confused with it.
Yes.
My area is really the CERs and the
SCRs.
and the
the
committee structure.
Okay, so these next steps that you have up now, that pertains to which one of the 3?
The committee.
The
Committee structure.
Okay, so your request for regional representatives, is that coming from the counties or are you saying those are the regional managers?
It's going to be the regional managers likely.
Okay, so it's not a request of the counties to give you representatives
No.
for this strike team kickoff. It's the regional managers
Correct.
who are going to be part of this strike team?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
This is Lynn. Another question is, how is the strike team gonna work? Who's gonna be on the strike team?
The strike team is a short-term group, and it is internal county staff, internal project staff, as well as the regional managers who are representing the counties in this particular
This is
item.
to create the model, Lynn, not going forward in terms of like the committee actual like engagement and design. This is like, what is that process, Deshaun? Like,
Correct.
what does that process look like as we work through this? And how do we engage the counties in that process from like CER all the way to kind of the design working group? So we're gonna have the RMs on that to kind of help us with designing the model that will inform the.
And will there be county input on that model?
Not on the model. I'm just gonna be really frank, because this is gonna be based on best practices and it's kind of, this has to work with our software development lifecycle, right? So we are going to think about design the model, and then we're going to, from the working group perspective, on the actual design in terms of CalSAWs and what we do in the system. That's where the counties will be providing input. Again, what we're trying to do is get your folks in the spaces making decisions that they can actually have like an impact and feel like, reduce frustration, right? Because the model has to work and it has to be based on best practices. It's not really a generic conversation. We're trying to make sure that this model works for the 58 counties, and otherwise we'll get into this loop on pieces that are really not material to the success of it, but more so what people preferences and things like that. And I think that's what Albert was also like let the project kind of give the framework, and then so the counties can focus on the areas that they need to, right?
So it is potential that the committees we have today will be no longer.
They will change. Yep. They will become more of a communication group, making sure that we're keeping people informed and that sort of thing. We have some ideas in that area. It's not all worked out yet. But of course, communication is huge. So we want to make sure that those things get covered, because that is a lot of what's covered in a committee meeting. It'll be just different.
But in the meantime, they'll continue to.
Yes, you still have to show it. You're not off the hook yet. She's like, can I just have to delete those on our calendar? I already saw her. Harry.
Any other questions? This was a lot of good information. Thank you. No questions from PSC? Okay. Do any of the public have any questions or comments regarding this topic?
Yeah, this is Jennifer. I had a quick question. I'm curious about how customer needs and priorities are included in the process. I know that counties, value the impacts to customers, and I'm wondering if there's like a specific metric or assessment that is part of the decision-making process that specifically indicates customer impact or customer perspective.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jen. I love the question, but I want to make sure you were done. I might have.
Oh yeah. Yep. That was it. Go ahead.
You're done? Okay, good. Okay. So one of the things that we'll be doing is when the JPA, the board, our JPA board or PSC is deciding on things, we have a matrix and impact, you know, is something that will be assessed. It's similar to, you know, on the collaboration model side, you know, that being one of those, you know, things that we have to take into consideration as we kind of score these. So I think the short answer is yes, it will be a, you know, a consideration as well.
Thanks. Is that matrix available or can I send an ask?
No, no, because we're still, this whole process is still in progress. And so once we have that, it's going to be public because it's going to be, these are going to be occurring at the JPA and the PSC. So.
Okay, thanks so much.
Any other questions from the public? No? Okay. Thank you so much. All right, the next agenda item. If it's Michelle.
Yes, Michelle Peterson, Test and Release Management Director. I'm gonna highlight some items on the WITTIP replacement effort. So as many of you are probably aware, WITTIP is set to be retired. This effort will occur over the Memorial Day weekend. So all the data that's currently in WITTIP is going to be transferred to CalSAWS, and then CalSAWS is going to take over, you know, complete maintenance of the CalWorks 60-month time limit and the TANF time limit. So everything that was currently maintained in WITTIP is now going to be maintained in CalSAWS. And so for, you know, so we can house all this data, we created a new, we're referring to as an application in CalSAWS. And we are calling it the statewide cache time limit. So another new acronym that we're referring to it as SCADL. So these pages that we're creating will house all of that data for time limits that was previously in WITTIP. And so these pages were designed to look and feel very much like pages in WITTIP. So we have a work group of county participants that we've been working with for about a year now on this effort. And so they wanted pages to look and feel like WITTIP. So those pages very much look and feel like WITTIP. So that is our SCADL application. And it's very similar to like when you access imaging, you get this pop-up. Well, that's when you go to access the SCADL, it will be very similar, a pop-up, and then you'll access those new pages. The effort for WITTIP also includes, we're building an API for the Employment Development Department. So EDD, they currently get some data from WITTIP to support their Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program. So we're building an API that EDD will use to pool data from CalSAWS for their eligibility for that program. And as I mentioned, over the Memorial Day weekend, WITTIP will shut down and become read-only on May 23rd. And the cache, the CalSAWS current time limit pages, those will all become read-only as well, still available for viewing. And then over the weekend, we'll do that conversion of all the data. And then I think it is the 27th. So Monday, the 26th being a holiday, May 27th, workers come to work and now they'll be accessing this new SCADL pages for data. We can go to the next slide. So for our county validation, so as just a little reminder, county validation is a voluntary effort that we do with every baseline release. Counties can volunteer to participate and validate SCRs going into our baseline release. And so it's typically for county validation for our baseline releases, the validation period is typically 2 weeks. There's more involved, prep weeks and then closeout weeks, but that actual validation week where the users are validating changes in the system, that's a 2-week period. But knowing that counties are going to want to look at the SCADL pages, do some validation of the converted data, we have extended the the validation weeks for the SCADL WIDTIP effort to 3 weeks. So what that means is in our 2503 county validation period, the counties are getting 3 weeks to validate the SCADL. And then in 2505, counties are getting 3 weeks as well. So total of 6 weeks to validate those pages and converted data. And one other thing I wanted to mention is the WIDTIP effort is going in a priority release. So it's not in the 2505 baseline. So we've made the exception to allow counties to validate this effort, though it is in a priority release. Now, we did have a bit of a hiccup, I guess, in I'll call it, in our 2503 timeline for this effort, because we're validating the changes for WIDTIP in a different environment. So not the normal environment that we use for county validation. We have it in a different environment. And there was some part that we missed where in that environment, users weren't able to access the SCADL application. And so we're implementing, we have a defect to resolve that. And I believe it will be resolved at the end of this week, early next week. But we are extending the 2503 SCADL validation period until March 19th. So we're giving an additional week because we took away a week. So just wanted to highlight that that additional week. So we can go to the next slide. And then we are doing some organizational change management because we do know there will be a bit of a difference in how you access pages. So the team is working on doing some recorded presentations for the new pages. We're doing some demonstrations where all counties will be invited to, and invites went out to that. Those will scheduled for March. And then we are doing a lot of updates to our existing time limit job aids. Those are all getting updated. The team is working on developing a county readiness checklist, and we're working on some quick guides. And like I mentioned, all of our existing job aids are being updated. I believe that was the last slide I had on this topic. So Irene, I'll turn it back to you for any questions.
All right, any questions from PSC members?
I have a quick question. Hi, Michelle. This is
Cindy.
Cindy, Region 4. I see on here where you had mentioned about doing the API over for EDD time on aid data. So that's kind of an interesting twist. And I was wondering, is there, or has there, or will there be any kind of interfaces with the child support information as far as ticking in and ticking based on child support collection, any of that, or is that?
That functionality that we have today in CalSAWS of, like, you know, we get the reimbursements and we have those time limit summary pages. We haven't changed any functionality for that. I know that's been a long-standing, like, can we enhance that functionality and like do that automatic, you know, give them a month back.
Right.
We don't have anything planned for that at this time, but you know, if it becomes a priority sometime in the future, you know, definitely look into that.
But all that will just continue to work the same.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That is a good point, Cindy. Like for this WIDTIP effort, we did not change any of like how any time limit rules, how months are ticked or unticked. You know, we didn't correct time limit records that may have had discrepancies, though there has been some cleanup effort where counties are, you know, they've been going through since late last year or the middle of last year to identify where, you know, you had duplicate people. And so identifying which is the correct record. So there is that cleanup, but you know, we didn't change any existing time limit functionality in CalSAWS.
And then once thank you for that. Once it goes over, then there will be an opportunity for workers just to normally update the time limit records. If, let's say, we're not able to review everything prior to the May date, cutover date, then the worker can still update the time on aid records in the new SCADL pages once it comes over?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
yes,
And
absolutely.
And we're trying to prioritize with the duplicate records review and all of that. And so, and this may not be your area of expertise, but do you know when the, I don't know, drop dead date or whatever would be to get all those lists reviewed and worked for this golden record review prior to the cutover? Is it, May 23rd? Would that be the day, or is there some time prior to that?
Let me take that one back, Cindy, because
Okay,
I don't
yeah.
know that one off the top of my head. I do know that, they prioritize them by some groupings, like everybody that's active right now.
Yes.
Um,
And
so
then I know we're going to get some additional lists to keep
yeah,
to look at. And so we're kind of trying to take that as a priority and get all of those reviewed and trying to send them out to, to staff. So just wondering how much time we had. But thank you for the additional information. That's going to be very helpful.
yeah, and I'll take that back and we'll respond.
Okay, sounds
to
good.
this group.
Any other questions from PSC? No, any questions or comments from the public? Okay. So next we have a presentation on performance trends.
All right, I'll go ahead and start us out here. So luckily, I can say that it's a very boring side on that left-hand side. So our last quarter was a spectacular quarter for business availability. And this actually marks the last time that Accenture will be presenting these metrics in the next meeting that will be transitioned over to Gainwell. So from an onshore, offshore metrics perspective, again, we have a cost rework as well below the target with our 2409 and 2403 through 2407 releases. So we're below 3% on the rework, so we continue to produce high quality. I'll ask Sarah to come on to talk about the imaging SLAs. Sarah, are you out there?
I am, Arnold. Thank you. For monthly uptime, the target each month is 99.9%, and we had 100% uptime in November and January. Unfortunately, we had an issue on December 30th, preventing the ability to view, upload, and process documents due to a defect which miscalculated the timestamp, causing mismatches during authentication. To resolve the issue, Highland implemented a development build to replace the faulty library, recalibrate timestamps, and reprocess impacted services. Highland Product Development is evaluating long-term fixes to prevent reoccurrence, and a SLA penalty credit was paid by Highland per our contract terms. The page views and database transactions each have a monthly target of 90%, and as you can see, both categories averaged over 99% during the 3-month period. That's what I have for imaging.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Owner, would you like to cover benefits cal, please?
Sure, thank you, Arnold. Good morning, everyone. For the benefits cal SLAs, benefits cal portal has been performing well through November through January, and met and exceeded all the performance SLAs that we had during that time period. And in terms of the onshore, offshore metrics, we kept and maintained the same plans of 45% onshore and 55% offshore. So these are the updates from the benefits cal SLA standpoint.
Thank you, Owner. Irene, back to you for any questions or comments.
All right, any questions from PSC members? Any questions from the public? All right, thank you all. Then let's move on to an update on benefits cal.
Good morning, everyone. This is Lynn Bridwell. For our ROI work group update, very similar to my other updates, we do have the published letters that have been posted, and they were posted towards the end of the year, first part of the year on the sites. They're listed here. So our teams are looking at it and doing a cross evaluation or a gap analysis, if you will, on the functionality that we were going to implement and what we can reuse based off of these letters. So a lot of our work is being spent on analyzing and figuring out the CBO information. The CBO information that is there, we know we need some corrections to it, needing to build it out and add multi-layers to it. I have referred to this a couple of times, that we know we need to build it out a little more. When the original design came across, it was, we have CBO X, and it was just that. But we also recognize as the CBO organizations are actually a lot more, now I've lost the right word. Anyhow, they've got multi-layers. They've got either multiple offices, they've got staff that interchange and cover different types of duties under different managers and stuff. And so our current structure didn't really support that. So there's some nuances there that we want to make sure we address with this that will help facilitate this ROI conversation. So we know, and that kind of build out it's going to be, it's posing a little bit of like, how are we going to do this and make it sustainable for long term? Because we know it's going to be very popular. It may actually be a good model for something else in the future, depending on what happens. So we're looking at it. We'll be engaging with the counties on operationalizing this. How does this work on your side, counties, as far as working with your CBOs and making sure that those are the right ones and that we keep information all contained and correct and updated? But also on the other side is also the engagement with our CBO partners in that they know and they can utilize the Benefits Cal tool like they had anticipated, and being able to get this information and get it updated and be able to provide all of us and counties the most current information about their staff and their organizations. So that's where I wanted to offer a little more on that, why it's taking us a little bit of time, because we want to set it up correctly, but we also recognize we're going to be diligent about protecting the information of the customers, because when that information comes through, yes, there's limitations on what can be provided under the release of information, the 229, but we need to make sure that the customer's information is protected and doesn't expand beyond that, or that bad actors can get to that, because we all know that our case information has got a lot of sensitive personal information. So we're going to have that rigor around it, and we know our counties, we know our advocate and CBOs also want that kind of protection on the behalf of the customers. So that is just an explanation of why it's taking that time. A lot of our analysis on the other functionality that we were going to implement looks like we're liable to be able to reuse it. We'll have to update a little bit because we've had a lot of system changes in between, but that is something we go. So that's going to be some of our focus during our work group meetings here, moving forward. In a short time, probably in a couple of months, we'll set up sessions so that we can have more engaging conversations with our counties on what is it going to take to operationalize it? What are you seeing? What does that mean for your dedicated admin now? Because that role may need to be looked at and reviewed or changed or updated or something. We don't know for sure, but because we'll need that conversation with counties. Also on the other side is the conversation with our CBOs and our advocate community of making sure that when they go to log in and they go into their account, that they can get to that information and it's highly protected, and that they're meeting those pieces on there and they can still get that information that they're that the client has said they're entitled, so that they can get that help that they need. So there's some effort around that. That's why it seems like we're in the hamster wheel moving real fast, but there's some due diligence here that we know it needs to be a really good model to set it up. So anyhow, more to come. So we continue working on that process. And with that, I know we have owner and others to cover other items.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. So following the release of information updates, I will briefly provide an update to our steering committee on the benefits call enhancements, where we are today and what is coming up this month as well as next 2 months. From the enhancement standpoint, I will just touch on the key highlights for each month instead of going every item that you see on the slide. From the February release standpoint, which is scheduled for end of this month, the key item I would like to share is regarding the document upload functionality, As you may recall on our customer dashboard, we already allow customers to upload multiple documents at once. But when it comes to new applications, renewals, or the periodic reports, customers have been vocal about ability to upload multiple document types and also add new document types during the AFD flow or renewal or the periodic reports. So that capability will be added to Benefiscal portal end of this month. In terms of the March release, key item I would like to highlight is we will be allowing customers to opt in for text messages at the program level. Currently, they have that ability at the communication preferences module, but it's holistic. And we will allow customers to be picky at the program level going forward. And then we will also have a new survey at the end of an application submission, so that data will help us to get more insights about the user experience and shape of our future efforts. In terms of the April, couple highlights, we will be, probably you remember me sharing earlier, EBT functionality is one of the frequently used features by the customer. And we will be adding a capability for them to see the deposit and the status of those transactions in the Benefiscal portal. And also improve the user experience for calculation of the applications to minimize the number of clicks for them while still doing the submissions. Last but not least, for the document upload functionality, what we heard from our counties is customers have a tendency to use the other in the dropdown instead of reading the dropdown and selecting the right category. It makes it more, it looks more convenient for them instead of reading the dropdown. So we are doing some analysis to change that, like customer behavior, and encourage them to select the right category from the dropdown itself. So minimize the workload for our counties in the downstream. So that is targeted for the month of April. If we can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. Next topic we would like to cover this morning is regarding the Get CalFresh parity. But before I jump into the details, I just wanted to provide some background. In March 2022, we have been working with CDSS and our Get CalFresh partners. There were potential 63 candidate items have been identified to get looked at. And since then, we had monthly working sessions with CDSS, Get CalFresh Consortium, and CalSons, and working those items. So far, the progress we've made, so what you see on the slide is the final view and the old summary of where we are today. Out of these candidate items, 29 of them have been identified as no action needed, so they are removed from the list. Another 29 of them have been implemented and closed in the Benefiscal portal, so they are already in production. And 5 of them are right now that we are tracking and on track and in progress to get completed by May of this year, 2025. So which is prior to the Get CalFresh sunset. Following this final view on the slide, what you see here is the game plan, which those remaining 5 items, the path forward plan, and which months we are planning to deliver them. As you can see, starting in February, we have 1 item and 2 items on March, and finally, we will be closing out all remaining items by end of April. But of course, we will be working with CDSS in terms of the outreach efforts to encourage those customers to start, adopt them to Benefiscal as well before the sunset too. So those activities are going to be in addition to these implementation efforts. So this is an update on the Get CalFresh parity. If we can move on to the next slide, please. Last topic we would like to share with our steering committee this morning is regarding the Benefiscal usage. Since this is our first steering committee meeting of the calendar year, we just wanted to give a brief summary of where we ended the calendar year and how we did in the calendar year 2024 in comparison to the previous year. Overall, the big picture, in the big scheme of things, we ended the Benefiscal since the go live in September 2021. We hit the 6.6 million applications. They're approaching 7 million. And within the calendar year 24, we received 2.7 million applications from the customers. It was around 2.1 million in 2023, so you see around the 29% increase year over year. We saw a similar increase in the doc upload, in 27% in comparison to previous year, reaching us to 70 million documents in total, images, and also an uptick trend in the periodic reports, slight and also reported changes, and also almost maintained a similar trend for the renewals go year over year. Only 3% increase for renewable stuff. In the big scheme of things, this is in addition to the adoption and outreach conversations we have been doing, but we just want to share a snapshot of our steering committee where we are as we end the calendar year 2024 and moving right now in 25. I will pause here for any questions.
Questions for PSC members? Any questions from the public? All right, thank you so much. Next, we're going to, I believe, Lisa Salazar for some updates on policy and releases.
All right, good morning, everyone. I wanted to just cover some of the things since we last met. I can't believe it was November 21st. It seems like a long time ago. So as always, it's a busy holiday season from a release and policy automation perspective. So just some quick highlights from December. We had our statewide minimum wage increase, something that we run every year. We also did the SSA COLA. In January, we ran the CAPI COLA, we ran SSI CalFresh COLA. So again, millions of records being processed to update those values and get those changes in for our beneficiaries. End of January, we had a release. So it was a relatively quiet release. We had over 70 system change requests and we are moving forward from there. But before I leave January, I do want to talk about, the horrendous weather events that impacted many of our beneficiaries in LA County and in other counties as well. So we did work collectively with, I'll start first with CDSS. So at the end of January, we ran a CalFresh mass replacement. So that was for 13 counties, issued close to $7 million to our CalFresh recipients, replacing about 70% of their benefits where they were impacted by power outages, wildfires. We subsequently got an update on that, and that population we're actually running again tonight because we've received approval to issue some replacement for their if they were aided in December. So that is on the books, it's in system test, and we're gearing up to run that tonight. Let me talk now about LA County and all the work and collaboration with LA County and CDSS. So on multiple fronts, as we speak, LA County is running a disaster CalFresh operation. That comes with several components. One, for existing households, we at the end of January met with the county, and given the impact of this urban disaster, I know you've all seen the harrowing videos online. There was a lot of residents and households impacted from a CalFresh perspective. So we received a request to try to automate the disaster supplement for the CalFresh households. Never been done before. The team worked around the clock, many thanks to the counties and CDSS being in the room so we could ask those questions, get some decisions made. And on February 7th, we were able to issue those disaster CalFresh supplements. So what did that mean? That meant the worker didn't have to go in, process the application. They didn't have to rush the benefits. Automation took care of that and freed the workers up to support the disaster CalFresh operation. So in the future, should we need this again, we now have that automation in place that we can leverage. We know that California has the wildfires every year. Additionally, we worked with CDSS and DHCS on renewals and SAF 7s. Again, USPS wasn't delivering that, right? If you look at Altadena and Pacific Palisades. And so, beneficiaries may not have received their RE or SAF 7 pay. Maybe they have benefits Cal and they've opted in. But again, given how many people were displaced, there was no guarantees that they received that information. So we worked with CDSS and the county. CDSS worked with FNS to get waivers. And so we have been running processes to continue benefits for those households impacted in the evacuated mandatory and voluntary evacuation zones to extend their SAR 7s and REs and keep them on aid. Again, first time we've done this, it did take me back to COVID, which is the last time we pushed out RE and SAR 7 dates. And given the enormity of this impact, DHCS came to the table, right? We always talk about disasters and CalFresh and supporting our CalFresh recipients. Similarly, our Medi-Cal members had renewals due. And again, they may not have received those packets or had the ability to go online. So DHCS quickly came to the table and requested that we extend renewal dates for those impacted members in LA and push those dates out. So we have been, again, working to do that on both the Medi-Cal side and the CalFresh side. So again, just want to thank everyone for the collaboration. I know it's been very stressful, and the team, everyone came together to do what is right and best and help all those impacted by the wildfire. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Let's from here we can move on to upcoming releases. And in fact, this first little chart here, I think we've already done these activities. Again, you'll see that the first one around pushing out Medi-Cal renewal dates. From a COLA perspective, we've got our next one queued up already. We're gearing up for our FPL COLA. We've got the values in the system. And the plan is to run that COLA the first weekend of March. So we're in system test on that as we speak. We also had our integrated 2502/2 release with our CalPeers partners. So that was deployed successfully last weekend. A couple of other things in March as we move forward. We do have our baseline release coming up. So as it stands today, we are close to 55% executed and passed from a system test perspective on that release. And you heard from Michelle earlier that county validation is underway, and we're actually leveraging our county validation 2503 to do some early testing on our WIDTIP. That is a conversion that's coming at the end of May. So we wanted to, not wait till 2505. We actually want to get folks in early, do some early testing, and then there'll be an opportunity for those same folks to come back and test again. Something else I want to talk about. Yeah. Okay. Coming up, some key changes, and you heard one from owner around texting and opting in by program. That was some policy work through DHCS CDSS that came out of the FCC ruling back in 2023. So this is one of our phased implementations, making sure we get the data collection updated, and from a worker perspective as well as from a recipient perspective online, and gearing up for that opt-in out by program. Additionally, we've been working with both departments on alternate formats. And so things like large print, braille, audio CD. So again, a phased implementation. So we worked with our CalPeers partners. So in the release that just went in, we're now getting information through that interface around county customer beneficiary options there. In 2503, there are additional data collection updates that we're making in CalSource to get this data, and as well as imaging and central print. So this is a change that impacts multiple parts of the application from a print perspective. Right now, print bundles are generated by county by priority. There's a few other factors in there. We now need to break it by alternate formats. So we need to break apart that logic and create new bundles when we turn this on in May. It's not getting turned on in March. Simultaneously, if a large print correspondent is sent back to imaging, making sure that it can be scanned. So there's a lot of underlying changes related to this to make sure that the system holistically can issue this alternate format correspondence. So I believe before we turn it on in May, this will be part of either the release, definitely the release web parts, so counties have an idea of what this means. And I should clarify, the May turn on is specific to our Medi-Cal members. We do have final policy. The needle is listed here on the slide. We're still working with CDSS. There is funding required on the CDSS side because this is from a print perspective. A lot of additional print costs there that the project currently doesn't have the budget to support. So it will be turned on for our Medi-Cal members in May. And so there are changes there. If someone has requested an alternate format, we need to look at all those Medi-Cal batches we do for auto renewals and timing of those, because some of these formats don't go out in the same time frame. Audio CDs takes multiple weeks to put together versus a regular packet that puts out a week. So we need to look at timing and staging of the batch processes as well for alternate formats and the various selections there versus non-alternate formats. So again, a lot of background changes, and we will be working with outreach mechanics just to make sure you have clarity around how these changes will be implemented and timing and things. Changes processes. So lots going on in the next few months. Next slide was just more of a deeper dive onto the timeline for 2503. As I said, county validation system tests, as well as Dom sitting right beside me and his counterparts. QA testing is active and underway as well. So some key dates there for you all that I won't drain, because I think we're a little bit behind schedule. Maybe we're right on schedule. And I'll pass it back to you, Ari.
Before, Irene, before you open it up for questions, what I did want to double click on, what Lisa referred to in terms of the disaster relief efforts, and just hand out kudos on top of kudos to the project staff, our state partners, and LA County. It was, to say Herculean effort is an understatement, and everyone was working around the clock to make sure that our most vulnerable, who were going through an even more vulnerable time, got the benefits that they needed. And so I think California, thanks all of you, and it was just a tremendous effort in watching it here on the ground. I think the collective, the 58 counties and the project and the state have a lot to be proud of. So, right, Irene.
Thank you. Okay, any questions from PSC members?
Nope, no question. This is Cindy. I was trying to react, but just wanted to echo that appreciation for all those efforts and quick work with all those disasters, and how quickly we were able to help the customers in our state. So thank you. And thumbs up is what I was trying to find, or but thought it's easier to just talk. So
You're not alone, Cindy. I was looking too.
So thank you.
Okay, any questions from the public? All right, then let's go to the next agenda item. Transition update. Dawn?
Yep, thank you. So from the infrastructure transition, we wanted to give everyone an update on where we are. Arnold alluded to this during the SLA conversation, that the next time around we will be presenting both M&E or application-oriented SLAs, which will be provided by Accenture, but the infrastructure ones will be handled by myself and our staff next time. So that's just one of the details that's changed with the infrastructure transition. And I want to give you the high level of what has transitioned and what is still in progress. But just a little review on what the process was to get us to the transition for infrastructure, which is on this slide. We started out some months ago with document reviews, looking at everything that was available, went through the knowledge transfer, which I know we've talked about some of these things in the prior meeting, where we took a look at and worked with Accenture on any questions we had from those reviews. We did a set of shadowing, which was us watching Accenture perform the work, reverse shadowing, where we performed the work and Accenture watched us take care of that. And then there was test and validation and readiness reviews. So for a great deal of the effort, we have completed all 5 of those steps. And we do have a couple of items that are still in transition. So let's get to the details of which things have transitioned and which haven't. So on this slide, you can see, and we did talk about this one before, but just as a reminder, on November 1st, we did have a few things that transitioned either from a contract perspective or actual services that transitioned. So GAGR correspondence and Benefits Cal Technical Service Desk, both were items provided by Gainwell historically, but we did have to move them to the new infrastructure contract. So that was accomplished on November 1st. The GAGR correspondence, we will continue to be providing both the application, referred to as the M&E, and the infrastructure. So nothing really changes there other than the contractual arrangement, moving it to the new contract. And similarly with Benefits Cal on the far right side of the slide, same idea. Gainwell has always been providing that Benefits Cal Technical Service Desk. Those services remain unchanged. It was a contract transition only. OCAT in the middle, however, as you may remember, was transitioned from Ernst & Young in its entirety, both the infrastructure and the application, to Gainwell because Ernst & Young's contract was ending. We will, however, in the future be transitioning that to Deloitte as the new M&E vendor. So infrastructure will remain for OCAT with Gainwell, but the application will, at a future date, be transitioning over to Deloitte. On the next slide, let's talk about what happened February 1st, because this is really the new news, if you will. On February 1st, we had a number of work streams, as we referred to them, that transitioned from Accenture to our infrastructure team. And we divided them up into those three categories: core infrastructure services, which really is cloud operations. You probably would think of it as the AWS cloud stuff that everything runs on. All the networking, so this is one that is important in terms of your interactions, because the networking, which includes the network between CalSAWS to your county POP or managed locations, has been transferred to Gainwell. So the services again remain the same: how you contact and request services, if you need to make a change to your sites and the network needs to be changed, all of that process remains the same. What is different is that you will probably have infrastructure people responding to you, rather than the Accenture personnel that you were probably used to working with in the past. But again, process is the same. Who calls you back will probably be a different set of individuals. And we have been doing this as reverse shadowing for several weeks now, and we took over in its entirety on February 1st. And then infrastructure security, so security as it relates to infrastructure, and analytics, basically, again, the platforms that the analytics system runs on, also transitioned to Gainwell. County support services, another area that actually impacts you directly. The CalSAWS service desk, the folks who answered the phone actually were Gainwell staff previously, even when Accenture was providing the service. Those folks remain. So you will continue to work with the same individuals, but it is under the infrastructure contract now. Remote maintenance technicians, same situation. If you have remote maintenance technicians who've come to your site, same ones will continue to come to your site, but it was transitioned in its entirety also on February 1st to us. ServiceNow, so any changes to ServiceNow or any usage of ServiceNow questions, that is all transitioned to Gainwell. And production operations, so all of those notifications you get, well, hopefully you don't get a lot of notifications about outages, but the ones that you do get are coming from the infrastructure team now, who is doing those particular communications as well. And last but not least, the one that you probably aren't so concerned about, at least for the top couple of bullets there, is project support. This is largely related to handling the workstations and laptops for the CalSAWS project staff, project management services, hardware and software procurement. But the one that you do care about is a number of your county purchases will now be responded to by Gainwell. So the biggest example here is probably if you want to purchase a kiosk, for example. Same process, works the same, put in your request just like you always do, but Gainwell people will respond. I did want to very quickly call out in the corner there, though, that we did send out a CIT for urgent after-hours support. You do have new contacts if you need to reach us when the service desk is not available. The service desk also has extended hours, also in that CIT. So the service desk is available on Saturdays now. And they also have longer hours Monday through Friday, all in the CIT for urgent after-hours support. And do use the new phone numbers for after-hours support when the service desk is not available. And then last but not least on infrastructure, on the next slide, I did want to let you know that we do have a few future transitions coming up. Imaging, contact center, and access management, which you probably have heard of as ForgeRock. The imaging area, the transition of any custom application components is planned for June 1st. So those are all the components where we basically work with Highland to make sure that any changes that are going in, we work with them to coordinate all of that stuff. But the imaging solution itself will continue to be provided by Highland. But on June 1st, those folks will now be Gainwell individuals who are taking over then basically both the application, which is slightly different here because Highland does a lot of that, but the infrastructure, any infrastructure that does exist and the application will go to Gainwell. Contact center, similarly, the infrastructure transition on February 1st, but what you think of as the application, the actual call flows, the people who work with you on changes for the call flows, those will be transitioning to Gainwell on July 11th. And you should anticipate that your staff will start to see Gainwell folks who are joining the imaging and contact center meetings. So don't be surprised when Gainwell is introduced in those meetings. It's a part of this transition that's coming up for both the infrastructure and the actual application itself. And then last but not least, ForgeRock, we are working through what the ultimate transition date will be on that. And once we get through those last 3 circles, the infrastructure transition will be complete in its entirety. I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Rajesh for the M&E transition.
All right, thank you, Dawn. Just a quick introduction, Rajesh Tailiani, CalSA's M&E project manager. So just as Gainwell is, finished their transition, we are just starting our transition, a 12-month transition. We are into week 3, and I'll talk about the guiding principles first. And essentially, we have 3 guiding principles. The first one is the seamless continuity of operation. We'll strive to have literally, no disruption to counties. So this should be a seamless to counties from a transition point of view. Number 2, collaboration and communications with consortium, with Accenture, with Gainwell. A lot of that is already happening and will continue to do that. Number 3, since Gainwell was ahead of us on the transition, we do have quite a few lessons learned from that. We'll incorporate those into our transition. And at the same time, the way we have structured, you will see in the next set of slides, it's a cutover by stream, and we have a staggered approach. So instead of one big bang, you will see cutovers by stream over a period of time. So essentially, those are the 3 guiding principles. If you go to the next slide, please. Okay. The phases here are very, very similar to what Gainwell kind of just went through. We are right now early on certain threads. We are fleshing out our plans on certain threads. We already have started KD sessions, and we'll talk about that on the next set of slides. But so far, amazing cooperations from Accenture, Lisa, and your team. So thank you for that. Same is true with Gainwell, working with them on various tech issues and things. As again, early on week 3, a cautious, optimistic note that we are off to a decent start on that front. Go to the next slide, please. Okay. So I'll spend some time on this one. So let's start on top where we talked about releases. So the way our plan right now is looking is 25.09 will be the last Accenture release in production. And bulk of Deloitte job shadowing and reverse job shadowing will occur on that release. And then 25.11 and 26.01 will be the 2 releases Deloitte will deploy in production prior to a 12-month transition period is over, with significant support guidance. The term we are using is back shadowing from Accenture. So we are again working on details, fleshing out details, but that's at a high level, the plan during transition in terms of which release Accenture will own, and then the releases Deloitte will own within the 12-month period. In addition to that, Calliers has a 12-month, their SDLC life cycle. That work is starting literally, a week from now or 2 weeks from now in March. We already have done some KD sessions, so that activity will continue in parallel. And as I said, this is broken down into multiple groups, multiple threads, with OCAD being the first one. We take over in April, right now it's with Dawn and Gainwell. And I expect that to be a seamless transition there. And then we have other groups like ProdOps, Tech Recovery, SCR. SCR is pretty much everything will revolve around SCR, and that's where a lot of activities will drive. The group 4 is the PMO, OCM, and then of course we'll work with Sandeep on the architecture and innovation pieces. So that's our thought process in terms of how we want to structure this and what particular activities. Slide, please. So far the activities, again, multiple threads in parallel are already gaining traction. The plans are getting fleshed out. We already conducted multiple KD sessions, be it OCAD, Calliers, Surfras, and Scurfras. Planning on 25.11 underway. Thank you to Michelle and Karen. Some of the early scope has been given to us. So we are looking into that to say how do we kind of get ahead on that front. With Gainwell on the access and security, those activities are in progress, and then a set of deliverables. So that's the update on the Deloitte transition. Back to you. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from PSC members?
Hi, this is Cindy, Youth Region 4. I have lots of questions, but I'm sure that they'll all be answered as the transition starts moving forward. So thank you for more of that information. I know I was kind of waiting and wondering how it was all gonna flow. So appreciate the flow chart and all the activities and the dates. I do have a question for Dawn though. Back on the presentation. So the ForgeRock, the last item where it says the King identity assessment is underway. So just wondering if if there's going to be any changes to that or what kind of impacts that might have on staff, because the ForgeRock is sometimes very tricky. So I was just wondering if you expect any downtime or issues or anything for county staff on that one.
So we're actually working through the details of the strategy for where to go with the identity with the consortium, Accenture, Deloitte, basically the joint team. So we don't have probably enough detail to answer the question you just asked, which is, would there be any downtime associated with the transition? But I will ask Sandeep if you would like to add anything in terms of where this is going.
Yeah, I mean, to answer the question, the transition should ensure there's no downtime. This is our most important system, and we should have the highest uptime there. But as we work through a larger strategy and then what we want to do, and then comes in when we want to transition, that should be worked out in the next few weeks.
And Sandeep, I would say if there is downtime, this might be planned. If we're doing an upgrade or something like that, as part of normal project work versus unplanned downtime. So if that does occur, we'll work with the counties and provide plenty of notice around what those outage windows would look like if we needed to take one.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks. And is it going to be called Ping identity? I mean, is it changing name?
We're gonna treat it like Prince, and we're gonna just have a symbol and whatever. The access management system, formerly known as, we don't know yet, but that's part of the strategy. Cindy, is to figure that out. It'll be better. That's all. It's gonna be the thumbs up.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much for all the information.
Any other questions? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, moving on to the next agenda item.
PSC, I'm Peggy
Good morning. I'm Peggy Macias, our Customer Engagement Director, and I'm going to be giving you an update on our ICT effort. So on this slide, you will see that, just to give you some reminders, we started this ICT effort back in early 2024, so March, April timeframe. So at that time, we worked with our regional managers to gather feedback on the ICT process from the counties. We got a lot of feedback. We took the first step of analyzing that feedback and identifying trends, and then we prepared our recommendations. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you will see what our progress has been to date. So you will see that in the first two boxes, we have checked them off. So one of the first things we did was we identified an executive sponsor from PSC to participate in this effort. That was Ryan Bishop. He has, stepped away for a little bit, and we had Rebel Ebel, I always mess up her name, from Mendocino as the PSC member from Region 3 that stepped in to continue with the effort. And I'll pause in just a few minutes for her to, if you'd like to give any comment. The next thing that we did was we convened a work group, and we can check that box off. And I'll take this opportunity to say that this has been such an amazing effort because of the participation of the work group members, the regional representatives from the counties, as well as our state partners. This has been such a collaborative effort. They've all worked well together. We've had excellent follow-up from everyone to provide answers when there's questions, and they've come to consensus, and it's just been, a model for, moving forward on how our groups should work together. So kudos to everyone. In our next block on training, we've made progress there. We've updated some job aids, WBTs, and quick guides. We'll be able to check off this training block once we complete our CalSAWS Learning Exchange, our CLE session that's scheduled for next Wednesday and Thursday. And that's a learning session on ICT. We've worked with our Project SMEs to put that together. We've been doing our dry runs. We're ready to go. So next week, the information did go out to the counties. So just as a reminder, your folks will be attending those two sessions next week, and then we'll be able to check off our training block. And the next block, our ICT protocol. This again goes back to the efforts of the work group. Again, they've been working so well together in updating that document. We're really, really close. We've had 5 sessions already with the group. We have another one scheduled coming up soon, next week, I believe. And we may need to extend out for a couple more sessions in the month of March if we don't wrap it up at our next meeting. But again, it's been going really, really well. The next, we added the next block, the last block there, because we wanted to really take a look at where we started and where we are to see if we've hit the mark. So we worked with our QA team to take a look back at all of the feedback that we received, and we mapped it out to see, did we address all the things that was brought up by the counties when we first started this effort. And so if you go to the next slide, you will see that these are the different areas of where we had 100 items that were initially identified from the feedback, and we took we looked at all of those items and mapped it back to where we have addressed the items that were raised. So this is just a quick snapshot of that you could see that 62 of the items has actually been addressed in the updates that have been made or are being made to the ICT protocol document. And You'll also see there's some county responsibility actions that, you know, that were also talked about and addressed. So there's a lot of things that we can successfully say that we have addressed. And we will be reviewing all of this information with our work group members so that they're well versed in, you know, where we've addressed the different comments that were made. So again, great job to the team on the effort that has been done with ICT. Next slide, please. Alrighty, so this is our next step. So again, like I said, we may be extending our ICT work group through, you know, possibly March to finalize the protocol document. Once we've finalized that document, then we're going to hand it off to the counties, the committee, to take ownership for maintenance of the protocol document. So we've established that ongoing, once the work group retires, then the effort will continue via the ICT committee. So they will be convening on a regular basis, and they will use that forum to be able to talk about, you know, how it's going with the ICT protocol document. And if there's any updates that need to be made, that's the group that will be making the update to that document. Once we hand off the protocol document, then we're going to let them work through it, you know, sharing it with their staff, training their staff on, you know, the updates to the ICT protocol document, and let it work for 6 months, and then reconvene with that group in the ICT committee to, you know, fine tune anything that may need to be addressed, or something's come up since the document was put out. And once again, I want to say thank you to our county regional ICT experts, our state stakeholders for their collaboration in this whole effort. You know, I cannot stress enough how wonderful, amazing actually it's been to work with this group, and, you know, the collaboration and how they've all worked together to really make this a successful venture. So thank you again. Before I close out, I just want to, you know, open it up to Rebel to see if she would like to, as our ICT sponsor, would like to, you know, make any comment on how she has seen the process go thus far. Rebel?
Yeah, you could call me Rebel if you like. This is Rachel. Evil Elliot.
So sorry.
That's okay. I've lived with it my entire life, 52 years. So I want to echo the sentiment. Although I've only had the opportunity to be involved in this work group for a very short time, I have definitely been impressed with the collaborative spirit and the input in all of the stakeholders. As I had shared with that group, once upon a time, I was the ICT coordinator for our county. Still do get some communications from counties thinking I still am the ICT coordinator. So I'm glad that I do have that experience that I can lend as well. And again, just as Peggy had said, I think that this work group has definitely stood out to me as like a model of the collaborative spirit, and is a good example of you know, how I wish all work groups would operate. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Rachel, it's not okay, and Peggy owes you a Starbucks gift card every time she calls you Rebel. Okay.
And I will just say that just about in every forum that I've provided an update, I've messed up Rachel's name in some.
You see how quickly when there's a Starbucks gift card.
I'll blame Ryan for that.
Please continue to call me Rebel because I like
And then I'll just wrap up by just giving everyone a reminder that we do have our ongoing CalSALS learning exchanges going on and planning, and our next one is going to be on task management in the month of April. So more to come on that. Thank you, everyone. And I'll turn it back to Irene for questions.
Any questions from PSC members? No, how about from the public? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. This one, Andy, you'll be giving us an update on.
Yeah,
I'll be,
thanks so much.
oh,
Passing
sorry
it
about
to
that,
Michael
Andy.
Cruz.
Yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead.
This is Michael Frazier, Social Service Program Supervisor with Fresno County. I'm also our IVR RCM. So I will be presenting with Andy today.
Great.
All right. So, well, you've changed the slide on me. So apparently it's been now 179,000 summaries we've generated in the past 7 months since we've gone live with English Gen AI. 100% of those summaries have generated within the 60 seconds, most of those in 8 or 9 seconds. I want to say we're well up there, 90+% has been generated within 8 or 9 seconds. Our eligibility workers are indicating that Gen AI does cover or handle heavy accents, and that's both on the client side and the EW side. It can understand both of those and summarize appropriately. One eligibility worker has expressed that it allows them to, and not just one, but multiple have now at this juncture, indicated that it allows them to focus more on the client and our customer service while on the phone because they know that AI will summarize that call for them. Our supervisors have noted that their staff can get back to their summaries if they are disconnected for whatever reason, or their system shuts down, or whatever the case may be. They can get into their call log and generate those summaries again so that we do have a clear understanding of what occurred on that phone call. Our supervisors are also reporting that it is helping with their reviews, both on the QA side and their own side, because it is adding that consistency to our eligibility workers' narrations across all classification levels. So next we will be working, going live with our Spanish Gen AI about 7 days from now. It kicks in on the 27th, and our eligibility workers will see the Spanish version on the 28th when they log in. Next slide, please. All right, so I will cover the qualitative side and Andy will do the quantitative side. So our AI summary, our eligibility workers, 80% of those have been unedited. Some of the edited versions that we found are due to preferences, not necessarily the context of the narration. With that, they're adding details that they find more to their liking, such as changing social security number to SSN or vice versa, adding calculations, various things in there. Based on the review summaries, the technology is accurately summarizing the calls. So when we've compared them side by side in regards to what was generated by AI and what our staff changed, it didn't truly change the narration. Again, it's a preference that the eligibility workers are changing along the way. And you can see that on the third bullet point. All right, Andy, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So as Michael mentioned, we're seeing that 80% of Gen AI summary content on average is unedited by eligibility workers. And then we're seeing about 20% of Gen AI content on average since launch is being edited. So we took a deep dive into the summaries to understand what exactly is being edited in that 20%. So Michael covered those takeaways on the left-hand side. Those are from a subset of about 600 summaries. We looked at where were eligibility workers editing the most. So those were in summaries where greater than 50% of the content was edited. And we took a look at those to gather the insights and understand what was being changed. And then after that, we took a random sampling of 100 summaries. So not just the ones that had greater than 50% edited, but a random sampling, so the average was very close to the 80-20 at the top. And we found the breakdown here on the right. So we found that for 21% of summaries, case actions were being added to the summary output. This is actually a required addition for Fresno County processes that eligibility workers add the actions that they're taking after the conclusion of the phone call, which by nature of the summary, since it's based on the summary transcript, it won't be included in the summary. So that is a requirement for eligibility workers to add. And then for points 2 through 5, these are things like formatting changes, changing the verbiage of customer to client, adding non-required summary information, and then reorganizing or removing specific summary elements. All of these items do fall into the eligibility worker preference category. And so in terms of next steps, we can move to the next slide to kind of highlight the steps that we're taking to make sure that the edits being made are consistent with Fresno best practices. So first is to continue building out management tools for supervisor insights. The CalSAWS GenAI report is what shows us the summaries before and after they're edited by the eligibility worker. And that report is what allowed us to find those insights on the previous slide. And then next, we'll further analyze and discuss findings to uncover additional insights. Our discussions have helped us identify training opportunities and create a list of summary editing best practices to share with the Fresno eligibility workers, just as a refresher. And then finally, continue to share training opportunities for eligibility workers, making any edits inconsistent with Fresno guidelines. And we found that it was a select group of eligibility workers that were making large edits to their summary content. So that gives us the opportunity to follow up with those individuals, get everyone on the same page about the best practices. And so those are the takeaways we wanted to share with the group today. That does conclude our update. So thank you very much.
Any questions from PSC members?
I have a question. This is Cindy, Utes Region 4, probably. Just wondering when it does get rolled out to the other counties or having that opportunity, where there's differences. For example, on one of the slides, it was mentioning that Fresno calls their customers customer. We do the same here, but others counties might call them clients, for example. That was kind of the example there. Is that something that's customizable throughout counties so that they can adjust based on their practices?
Yeah, absolutely. The GenAI prompt is customizable. So Fresno is able to have certain things that are requirements in their summary output, and we design the GenAI prompt to accommodate for that. And so I think as we explore the expansion to other counties, it's going to be an important discussion to have. Do we want the same GenAI prompt and output for all counties, or do we want to have it be customizable to different county preferences?
Okay, great. And then I see that you're going to start having some conversations about exploring Spanish calls. And so is that going to be something that's going to be completed with Fresno before it gets offered out to other counties, or is that sort of the timeline?
Yeah, so we've actually been working on that, and we have our deployment scheduled for this month, so next week actually. So we've been doing our internal testing for the Spanish calls. That's our next step with Fresno.
Yeah, Andy and Regina and the team will be out here Wednesday, Thursday, and we go live Thursday for Spanish Gen AI. Our staff will see it Friday morning when they log in at 7:30.
Great. Well, I know that's something that's been requested, so that's great to see it coming.
And back to your original question in regards to customer and client, Andy and team over there have been very helpful in regards to, we have, you know, biweekly meetings. We've done, I think we're rolling out to our 9th enhancement coming up as part of the contractual agreement. And they have been making changes as we've seen changes that are needed for our processes here. So they have been very receptive in regards to meeting our needs in regards to making the job easier on our staff.
Great. It sounds like it's gone really well. Thank you for your update on it.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, any other questions from PSC?
I have a quick question. Julie, do we know when potential rollout is?
Yeah, so, it's in the budget for CalSAW's Y 26-27. If that answered your question. Anything? Request. Yeah,
Or
request. Oh, sorry. I get too optimistic. Yeah, it's request. Thank you. And then, but prior to that, it would still be a county purchase. Thank you.
Any additional questions? How about from our public? Okay, thank you.
Good
And next we
morning.
have Tom Hartman giving us an update on procurement.
Yes, the first procurement update is the Benefits Cal key procurement tasks, and the big date to look at for this one is March 19th, 2025. All the work has been completed by the evaluation team except for the final review of the vendor selection report, and that will be publicized as well as the intent to award on the 19th of March. Next. We're in the RFP development phase for QA re-procurement of QA services, quality assurance services, and that is still meant to go out August 11th, and with the reports, or rather the proposals coming back on October 20th of 2025. Everything's on schedule and moving right along. Back to you, Irene.
Okay, any questions? PSC? Any questions from the public? All right, thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next, we have some updates from our state partners.
Good morning. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
ahead.
This is Patrice Yang from OTSI. On January 31st, OTSI received the CalSAWS as needed January 2025 IAPDU, and the IAPDU is currently under state review. And that'll be all from us. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Cecilia with CDSS. CDSS has no updates today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Teresa over at DHCS. Just a couple of things. One, just letting you know about a policy letter that we've recently released in regards to some updates around incarcerated verification processes. So just making sure that I put that in the chat in case anyone hasn't seen that. And then secondarily, just letting folks on this call know that we are working really closely with county partners around finishing out those remaining outstanding renewals that were part of the continuous coverage unwinding. We know that much of that work does focus on data that we are utilizing CalSAWS to obtain and sort of track from. We've heard that there might be some discrepancies in what the counties are tracking as far as their outstanding renewals versus what is maybe included in the reports. So DHCS and CalSAWS and the counties are working closely together to make sure that we refine any of those data related issues so that we can truly see the picture of what is left with that outstanding renewals. So we will be meeting with counties that still have outstanding renewals later this week. And so just letting folks on this call know sort of where we're at and the last push to get those particular cases completed. That's all the updates from DHCS. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from PSC members? Any questions from the public? All right, thank you. All right, we're going to our regional priorities. And let me go to Region 1 first.
Good morning. For Region 1 priorities, we have 3 priorities. Reports is becoming high again on our priority list. In particular, as we look at potential federal regulatory changes and really assessing the impact of those changes, potential impact of those changes to our communities and to our clients. So trying to target what that population looks like and how we need to support them moving forward. So that's becoming a real critical effort for our region. ICTs remain a priority for us, as well as task and workload management, SCRs, and initiatives. That's it for Region 1.
Thank you. Region 2.
Good morning, this is Eduardo from Region 2. I'll keep the trend going as Region 1 with our top 2 priorities. The first one, of course, being update state manager reports and also modernizing the ICT protocol guidelines. So thank you to Peggy, Brian, and Rachel the Rebels and their team for really working on that. Appreciate the updates on the information work on the ICT. So thank you for that. And then lastly, is coordination with the state on new policy implementation as well. So that's all for Region 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Region 3.
Okay, for Region 3, our priorities remain manual NOAAs and manual EDBCs, specifically NOAAs with up-to-date regulations that generate at the appropriate time. Counties are spending a lot of time creating manual NOAAs, for example, for Medi-Cal and foster care. As the other counties have stated, ICTs remain a priority, specifically the communication, strategic alignment on protocol guidelines, and the potential for some refresher training on ICTs. Also, duplicate persons. Counties are also reporting spending a lot of time. It's time consuming to merge the duplicate people to multiple steps. It does really add a lot to the work process. Mid-period actions, reporting some positive changes haven't been taking. Some issues with the verified upon receipt or VER not being recognized by the system, and then too many workarounds. Reports, ad hoc reports, usability, lack of documentation or training, turnaround time for ad hoc report requests. We see some opportunities for some improvements with our processes, and system configurability, emphasizing the importance of the system flexibility, ensuring the ability to opt in and out of features as needed remains a priority for Region 3. And that's it for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And going to Region 4.
Hi, I'll go ahead and report out for Region 4. Cindy, it's for Region 4. Basically, we have kind of the same trends that everybody is reporting on. So the ICT process, and thank you to that work group. It sounds like it is going really smoothly, and we'll have a really good protocol to work from after this, and appreciate the training as well. So that'll be that I think will be a really good result of this new prioritization. Reports as usual, just kind of continuing all of that. Release communications, the contact center, and then also duplicate person record reconciliation. Yes, it's proven to be pretty time consuming, and especially if we have to contact other counties, kind of similar to ICTs. But those are the priorities that we've listed for Region 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Region 5.
Good afternoon, Jermaine Duncan. For Region 5, we do have the same priorities as we've continued to have as far as our session management logout issues. Not all CalSol services are synced to the same session, workers experience frequent logouts if services are not refreshed regularly. Our workload management report, I think everybody's sharing in that effort of that need, and our intake scheduling. Our county filter on person search pages. I think we're all kind of feeling the same way about that, how we need enhancements there. And lastly, our intake information packet, how that we do find that there's a time saver for staff, that it would be a time saver for staff, and we will target quality issues, ensuring that staff send informational packets for intake applications, and the target audience is Medi-Cal, CalFresh, and the CalWorks program. Back to you.
Thank you. And for Region 6, DCFS?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Our department is deeply involved with the CARES and FSET planning efforts. We're also focusing on how going to a paperless process will impact current business practices. And internally, we're just getting ready for the audit that's going to be coming up. I believe the last training for us would be at the end of this month. We're having our federal audit since we're not part of the Title IV waiver anymore. So we're just trying to see what everything is going to entail so we can be as prepared as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sean?
So on the DPSS side, we continue with the ABOT, a procedural automation. We know we have waivers, but we're really trying to make sure that the system can support some of the manual processes that we foresee, as well as contact center enhancements. And one last thing, just because of how the environment that we are, a lot of our efforts for Disaster CalFresh have previously mentioned in this meeting, the issuance of the supplementals and the mass replacements that have already occurred, but as well as the waiving of the recertifications for CalFresh, for Medi-Cal, as well as we got board approval to waive the annual agreements for our general leave general assistance program for January, February, and March.
I also wanted to add for, as with the other regions, LA County is also looking at the task and workload management to see how we could refine that process. And look at the tasks, the due dates, priority levels as such for our local task creation. So if there's any questions regarding any of these updates from the public? All right, thank you so much. So then Julia?
Oh, yeah. We're just going to share, as many of you know, we have our 2025 CalSouth conference in June. And so we're going to just share a little introductory video on it with, I know registration is next week. March 3rd. March 3rd, so there you go.
All the counties in California. You did it. You made what many thought was impossible, possible. 58 counties, one system, and most importantly, one mission. You have a lot to be proud of, and there are a lot of people throughout California that want to give you thanks. But we're not done. In fact, we're just getting started. Your mission. Should you choose to accept it, is to join us for the 2025 CalSouth Conference in San Diego. We look forward to seeing you there.
All right. So that's it. Irene.
So do sunglasses come with our registration package?
You know what? I'm trying to work that into the budget right now. It's funny you said that because I got a request from staff if we had a budget for sunglasses for 300 people.
All right, any other questions on any of the items that were presented today from PSC members? Any comments?
Just a quick question for the conference. Are we gonna get an email like we do the monthly reminders, or is it going to our the directors? And then they filter down?
Yeah, so it should be on everybody's calendars already as a save the date. It does show the
Okay.
26th and 27th of June because those are the actual conference dates, but normally everybody arrives on the 25th, so that's why it says 25th in the little video.
Okay.
So that's on your calendars. There will be email announcements when registration opens. It'll go to PSC and JPA. We do have room for 300 people. So if there are key staff that you would like to bring as well, there is room for some of that. And we are highly encouraging county participation on some of the panels. So hopefully you'll be hearing from your RNs to recruit people and counties to help with the presentations like we did last year. Again, it'll be free like it was last year. You just pay for your travel and accommodations and all of that. So. Got it?
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the public on any of the agenda items? No? All right, then. With that, I believe you get about maybe about half hour back of your day, and I want to thank everybody, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.